What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the Dog Benfica podcast, episode number 232. Steve, I forgot to shut off my camera. I don't have the green screen behind me, so
Messy bedrooms don't need to be seen on the internet.
that's right. Um, Episode number 232. My name is Alfredo. I'm here with Steve Santos. As you've heard on tonight's podcast, we'll look back at the Braga game, which took place this past Sunday. We'll also look ahead to Chaves, which comes up this Friday, ahead of Benfica's midweek game against Estoril, which is Tuesday. That's the first leg, the Portuguese Cup. It's going to be played at this round. The quarterfinal is played on a two-leg system. Benfica will travel to the
Down the street,
coastal region. The coastal is a coastal region of Lisbon. No,
uh,
Estoril.
kind of. It's a little bit. I think it's still a little bit further inland where the stadium is, but
yeah. So anyway,
closer to the coast than Stade de Luz, that's for sure.
That's for sure. So let's talk about this Braga game, Steve. A huge game for Benfica. Braga hadn't been doing all that well, but this was a game that perhaps was earmarked by some of our opponents and also by the club silently by Benfica as one of the crucial games in the title race, as one of the games that where Benfica could have had difficulties and could have lost points. Of course, Porto had played on Friday in anticipation of the Corrupt Bowl that's happening tomorrow. Was in first place. Benfica played second, so Benfica had the pressure to win their game, and this is a game that everybody was waiting for Benfica to lose points. I'll give you the lineup real quick before we get into the game. Júlio César was in goal. Of course, Ederson was serving a one-match suspension. Semedo, Luizão, Ederson, and Eliseu were across the back. Feza and Pizzi in the middle. Salvio and Zivkovic. Zivkovic was back after sitting out the European a game for the Champions League, which he was serving a one-match ban. Rafa and Mitroglou up front. Jonas still hurting from that neck injury that he picked up while watching TV on a couch sideways, probably watching that novella. So not available. From what I understand, he's going to be available this weekend for Chaves. So we're looking forward to having Jonas back. So, Steve, let's talk about this game. Very, very hard-fought game in the midfield, especially. Not a lot of goal opportunities, if you will, for either team. But these are the type of games that Benfica has to win in order to get to the title.
Yeah, it's like you mentioned earlier, it's one of the matches that a lot of people would have earmarked as a place where we might lose points and they might have gotten their hopes up, the Ports and the Sportings of this world, thinking that we would drop points and they would gain some ground on us. But thanks to our trusty friend Mitroglou, who pulled a rabbit out of the hat in the 80th minute, that's not the case. The game before that, though, was really... It's a little bit of what I said it was going to be. It was attack versus defense, but we weren't really clicking in the final third for a variety of reasons. Jonas being missing is a huge thing. I think you're starting to see a lot of fatigue within the side. On Braga's end, a team that doesn't excite me at all. I mean, yeah, you're playing at home. You have a Benfica side that isn't in its best moment, looks a little shaky, and you can't really exploit anything with the ball at your feet, except for a couple plays by Rui Font and was that Pedro Santos, who had there was a couple of moments of individual play, but on the whole, there was nothing collective to Braga. I mean, this Jorge Simão guy, he wears a nice suit with a scarf on, has nice slick back hair. He looks the part, but I don't know, man. Doesn't look like much of a coach to me. Defensively sound, but with the team that he has, albeit not amazing, but the fourth best team in the league, you should be able to present more on the offensive side of things, I would say. But this is a Benfica podcast, and that's enough about Braga. Benfica is missing. We're missing a little bit of, I don't know if it's confidence or just that looseness that when you're fit and you're playing well and things just work out for you, that's just not there. Rafa gets the ball in good positions, but can't finalize a good pass, can't finalize a good shot. Um, Pizzi is okay when he's just connecting play the the constructive area of the pitch, but when he's getting into areas further up the pitch and he needs that little bit of extra touch, that little bit of extra something, he's missing it. Zivkovic had a match that since he's come onto the scene has probably been his I don't want to say it was a poor match, but you used to see a lot more shining moments from Zivkovic, and you didn't see many against Braga just this weekend. Just to go down the roster, Salvius in in as a pressure release, he's great because I don't know what he does, but he's able to beat that first guy. He's able to to spring forward, and it looks like an attack is going to start. But a lot of plays after that moment die at his feet, whether it's a poor cross, taking on that one guy too many, poor decision to pass the ball to the wrong player that's cornered. Salvi's not in a good moment of form, if you ask me.
Mm.
And it is what it is. It's not right to be pointing fingers at individual players when the team is obviously not in its strongest moment. But it's those same individual players that you need to look at to show that they are worth that extra bit of value to get you out of these situations. And the only guy who has seemed to do that recently is Mitroglou. It's 4 games in a row that he scores goals, and that's all you could ask the guy to do. I mean, he's not the player that's going to connect sectors for you. He's not the player that's going to really create chances on his own, except for the goal that he just scored. But he's only doing his job. It's up to the other guys with the individual talents to bring that extra bit to the table that we know they all have.
Yeah. And Steve, you talked about tiredness, and look, we had mentioned here that Benfica did play a game on Tuesday against Dortmund, and that Sunday was plenty of time to rest. Yes, it is plenty of time to rest, but also let's not forget that game against Dortmund is a game that, as far as intensity goes, there's at least a couple notches ahead of what Benfica will face in the Portuguese league. So it was something that took some of the steam out of the players, if you will, and also you got to think that regardless of what's been said, and regardless of what Vitoria says to take the pressure out of the team, this 1 point lead over Porto did all of this last year. This 1 point lead over Porto has to not really has to bring some level of pressure to the team, right? So I think that maybe some of that stiffness and some of that looseness that the team lacks is, I think, it has a lot to do with this pressure. It has a lot to do with the fact that Porto's playing first. The team is forced to win in order to remain up front, and you got just a game in 4 or 5 weeks time. You got a big marquee matchup at the Luz against Porto, who could very well separate the two of them depending on the result. But I think that a lot of this lack of looseness and the free flowing game that Benfica usually has or has had during the season is due to pressure. I don't know if you feel the same way or not, but I think that the pressure has a lot to do with it.
There's an obvious shout for that. Rui Vitoria, Salvio, everyone's playing down the whole pressure that you're mentioning in the press because it's something that's coming up over and over again. Because it's a valid point, like you just finished saying, it's only 1 point in advance. The team has struggled since Porto has gotten a little bit closer to us. The pressure's it's got to be making a point. At least the way we're looking at it from outside, it's got to be a point. But it's hard to judge it when you're not inside. I honestly think that at this moment, I remember versus Boavista, you were saying in the last 70 minutes or the last 20 minutes, the guys looked gassed out, and I was like, I don't know if they were more mentally tired and just really pushing too hard to to get the goal, or if they're actually physically tired. But now I'm thinking it's a little combination of both. I was listening to Bola Branca, I believe it was last night, this morning, or maybe even the morning before that. But Benfica's already played 38 competitive matches this year. That's a
Yep.
lot. That's a lot of football.
Yep.
That's a lot of football that very key members of this squad have played a good probably 80 to 95%. Some I wouldn't be. I think Samidu's played almost every match as well as Pizzi, and that's
Yeah.
two very influential players in our team right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's starting to catch up to us.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of what Pizzi says, and in a flash interview after the game, he was asked whether or not he was tired, and he said, "Oh, that's just the media talking and trying to sensationalize these news." But I'm fine, and I'm ready to give my contribute to the team. But the fact of the matter is that little by little, you start seeing some things. Yeah, I mean, you got a Pizzi that almost flips a switch at times, and he's very good. And then there's other times that you see Pizzi struggling. I was actually trading a couple messages on WhatsApp with our friend Bruno, and he was saying that in the first half, some of the things that he was noticing was the fact that Pizzi was leaving Fesa to cover the area in front of the defense by himself. So I don't know how much of that has to do with Pizzi trying to pace himself. I don't know how much that has to do with teams taking Pizzi out of the game because they know that he's such a key member of this team, that Benfica's game goes through his feet. I don't know, and him having to work extra hard to find the spaces to receive the ball. I don't know, but the fact, like you mentioned, Steve, 38 games. And a lot of these guys, I've played all of those 38 games, and mind you, some games have been hard-fought battles that Benfica has had to fight until the end to win games or to see out games. It's concerning to me, especially going into the final stretch of the season.
Definitely. Something that I noticed, Pizzi's not in the second half. I just finished watching it. I never watch games live anymore, but in the second half, you see a Pizzi that's not as willing to show himself for the ball compared to his normal self. There's a couple plays where I was just like, Pizzi, there's an obvious space for you to be moving into so you can receive the ball, but he was static, and I have to believe that's just he's not in the physical form that he's saying he is. He's feeling it. So this whole Felipe Augusto working his way into the side, we've mentioned it for the few weeks in a row. He's getting minutes. I really want to see him get a start and play a good 60, 70 minutes that Pizzi will not have to play, but we'll have to watch.
Well, I mean, you don't have to go any further. If Pizzi picks up a yellow card in the next game, he sits a game. So maybe that's the rest he needs.
It could be.
So maybe he just picks up a yellow card against Chaves and then he sits. So we'll have to see. But Benfica finished the half with 54% of the possession. Braga had actually more shots and opportunities, and Benfica had more attacks, and that was pretty much for the rest of the game until that moment of brilliance by Mitroglou. I don't know how he did that. It's one of those things that you see the counter developing and the attacking movement develop, the attacking play develop, and Mitroglou has the angle, and then he just slows down, and he lets the defense get composed and behind him, and you said, "Oh man, já fudeu." And he just stops. I don't know what he did. He got a fortuitous rebound off of somebody's leg that he ended up with the goal. But look, you can't take anything away from the guy. It's one of those hard fought plays that a guy such as himself, a guy that's not overly technical yet could do away with certain things at times. And I don't know if it was a lapse of concentration by the Braga players, being that they were all behind the ball and seeing that he can't go anywhere. He's probably going to pass the ball, and Mitroglou just took advantage of it, and then got past a couple guys. The third guy came on, got away from the third guy, and then he beats the keeper. So a moment of brilliance by Mitroglou, which a lot of times this season, that's what we've seen, Steve. The individual talent overcoming some of the team play.
Yeah, but when you have a team like Braga who is defending with a lot of players behind the ball, you you need that. You need that extra bit of special something, like I mentioned earlier. You need the 1v1 mismatches to happen, because if you don't have it, it gets very difficult. Spaces are very compressed. Um, the closer you get to the goal, the more guys are between you and the goal. It gets difficult. Uh, if you watch the match, it wasn't so much that we had difficulties getting into the final third, where sometimes we have that. It was more difficulties in making our movements in the final third work, whether it's that little bit of extra quality wasn't there, or if it was just a lot of times a very well placed Braga defensive setup. So you have to take everything with, not with a grain, but you have to take it. You can't take it out of context.
Yeah.
Benfica is a better team than Braga. Benfica has better players than Braga, but there's going to be moments where Braga's uh, defensive structure and organization are going to make it difficult for Benfica. So you need those better players to make the difference.
Right.
And it took the 80th minute for that to happen, or 70 whatever odd minute it was that he scored.
Yeah. And I think that at one point, Rui Vitória was ready to put in Felipe Auguste and ended up pushing because Benfica had scored, right? I don't know if, yeah. So Carrillo comes in for Salvio in the 60th minute. Jimenez comes in for Zivkovic in the 72nd minute. And then I think he was getting ready to put in Felipe Auguste in the midfield to solidify and maybe release Pizzi to some more offensive duties. And as it turns out, Mitroglou scored that goal. And then in the 89th minute, Felipe Auguste did come
Yeah.
on for Mitroglou. So Mitroglou can get the applause. But a very hard fought game by Benfica. A really good win, perhaps one of the more tasty wins, if you will, that you're going to have all season because of the nature of the game. And because as you're watching the game, you're thinking, this is not going anywhere because Benfica is not really creating. Braga did hit the upright at one point from a corner kick with the header. Benfica did have a couple chances, but nothing too crazy that where the Marafona had to do in a spectacular save to prevent Benfica from scoring.
There's a couple of chances, Alfredo. The one Mitroglou that they call offside, that's level, I would say, and he ends up scoring. The goal gets called back, and then
there's one in the first half that he puts it over the bar.
Yeah, there's a cross. I can't remember if it was from Salvio or Hafa at this point, but that's the one where he puts it over the bar. It was just needed a slightly more delicate touch, and it would have went in. The stat where they only have 2 shots on goal within the past 180 minutes of football, but have won both games. Yeah, it's a fancy and nice stat to look at, and it has a lot of relevance for the Borussia Dortmund match because we were overrun. But for this Braga match, it's stretching the truth, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes numbers don't tell
the whole story. Exactly.
But what does tell the story is the fact that after losing against Vitória Setúbal, Benfica has gone on a 4-game run without conceding goals. That, of course, includes the Dortmund goal, the Dortmund game, as you know. So all the clamoring that we had heard about the defense, and we need to get Luizão out of the defense, and we need to get Jardel back in there because the defense is allowing too many goals. Now it's back to business as usual for Benfica's defense, not allowing goals in the past 4 games, which is always a good thing, right? So I know that if you don't score, you don't win, but also for you to win, you can't allow goals. That's the biggest thing.
I think a very good coincidence to look at is a certain, I'm pretty sure a certain Eliseu has been a starter in all 4 of the last matches. If not 4, at least 3.
Epa, what are you trying to say?
Man, I'm digging myself a hole because I'm not a big fan, but that's something to look at. That's definitely something to look at, and the experience, quote unquote, that Eliseu has, that Chris likes to point at, and all the naughty plays. There was a lot of them in this Braga match.
Yeah,
a lot of them.
No, Eliseu is like an old fox.
Yeah,
He's
he,
had the experience.
he definitely showed it off in that last match.
He's got the strength right now to shield the ball, and he just waits for the contact, and he goes down. And he's just a guy that puts his body where he can't get his foot. And he's a guy that definitely at this
Professional
point
foul too.
his experience is probably doing him um, a better service than his actual skill at this point in his career at Benfica. At least that's what I see. I mean, you're not going to get a guy that's up and down the wing. You're not going to get a guy that's going to shut down the opposite winger every single time. But you're going to get a guy that knows how to play and knows the tricks, right? Knows how to close down people, knows how to frustrate people, and also knows how to win certain plays with just his what his experience and his smarts. So good for him.
Absolutely,
I
good
know.
for
I know
us.
a lot of Popsicle fans are happy out there that he's there. And to be quite honest, I don't know if this is his last year contract, but be quite honest, I'm glad that Eliseo hasn't spent all this season on the bench. That he's getting sometimes because, regardless of what you think of Eliseo or how you rate him, he has been an important guy for this Benfica team, right? Both last year and the year before that, he has been a guy that's not overly flashy, but there's a level of consistency that he brings also to the game.
I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah, so take it as you will. Next up, Benfica will play Chaves. The game will take place this Friday at 9 p.m. at Stade de Luz. Braga is currently 7th place, 32 points from 7 wins, 11 ties, and 4 losses. Only Benfica and Porto have had less losses than Chaves. They also have the most ties in the Portuguese league, so that kind of explains why they haven't lost a lot of games. Um, they are, like I said, they're playing outside of the loose. What can we expect from Chaves? Another tough, hard fought game from Chaves, I'm sure.
I haven't seen much of them since George Simon left. They were very much like Braga were against us prior to that when Simon was there. Defensively sound, very hungry and very. They're always looking to win the second ball, always looking to win the 50-50 balls, but they don't have a lot of talent. So
Hmm.
it is what it is. A game like that at home, you gotta show why you're the first place team and why Shabs is in whatever position that they are in. You might have just
Seventh.
mentioned it. Seventh.
Seventh is not bad.
That's not bad for Shabs, actually. Credit to
Yeah.
George Simon. He just moved over, maybe 2 months ago, and
Yeah.
it seems like they've kept on trucking for that. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that has just been promoted last year, and right now at 32 points, they're sitting pretty to just
To stay up. Yeah,
their stay afloat or
for
stay
sure.
in the first division uh visa, if you will. So what we expect a tough game, like all games are. Chaves coming to Benfica. I know that Benfica is playing at home. Benfica needs to continue to build up momentum. They got Dortmund on the horizon. They also have a difficult match against Estoril, in Estoril, as I've mentioned, a week from today for the Portuguese Cup. But Benfica just needs to get back on that rhythm. I am a little bit concerned about the team's stamina and how the team is handling their rest and how they're managing their rest. I don't see a lot of rotation in the squad by Vitoria. Perhaps the wingers we do see some rotation, but the guys that are crucial to this team, and I understand but
It's
if
difficult.
it's difficult because they bring so much. Like a guy like Fesa, he brings so much to this team. At what point do you feel confident that you could put a Felipe Augusto in that position and not have Benfica's production go down or keep the same level of consistency that Fesa brings in? Pizzi, we really don't have a natural 8, a guy that could pull the strings like Pizzi. I never thought I would say that, Pizzi pulling the strings at Benfica, but it is what it is. It's the reality that right now Pizzi does pull the strings.
You know what? This is where that 1 point makes a big difference too. if you had a bit of a cushion and you were confident and you felt that you could, let's just say, play Andre Almeida at six to rest Fesa, play Felipe Augusto instead of Pizzi. You have that not really margin for error. It's margin for error, and there's that extra added confidence of knowing that you're top dog and you're comfortable. When
Yeah.
you don't have that, it's difficult to look at Fesa and say, you know what, man, I need you. It's difficult to say I could put you aside for this match and let Andre play a little bit and see what happens. It's it's hard to see the match and say that's something that you could actually do when Porto's that close to you. So I could see why Rui Vitoria now is getting in this rut, and with these players that don't have. See, he with the wingers, he has quality substitutes. You take off Salvio, you bring on Carrillo. You have a lot of what Salvio brings you. You have the 1v1 ability. You have the fact that Carrillo is probably better than the whole team that he's going to be facing that night. But if you take off Fesa and you put in a Felipe Augusto, you put in an Andre Almeida, the drop in quality is huge,
Yeah.
and they're in very key positions that they're not. I don't want to call them a luxurious position, but they're not. They're too important
Yeah.
to be placing a guy who doesn't have the rhythm, that doesn't have the movements and the game model ingrained in his brain like the two that we have there. It's and then you have Samaris, who's been a shadow of himself for a year and a half, for as long as Rui Vitória has been around. So it leaves you with very few options in those tight positions. I think somewhere where we've got to eventually just bite the bullet and give Nelson a rest is right back. I
We
mean,
have to. We have to.
um, there is a drop in quality from Nelson to Andre Almeida, but Andre Almeida was good enough to win you a championship. He's got to be good enough to play against a Chaves, good enough to play against a Estoril, that you could rest a guy who up until maybe a month ago, month and a half ago, was a great what's the word I'm looking for? He was a guy who was creating a lot of mismatches, and he was
Yeah.
a guy who was a catalyst to good attacking play. And at this moment, you have a Samidu that's only picking and choosing his moments to go forward. And even when he does, he doesn't seem to have that same. I don't know if it's turn of pace or even just the same freshness where he could make the play that he was playing earlier, and that's something that we're missing right now.
Yeah.
You need a guy who could do that in the final third, and we're missing it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you got to wonder. And look, I'm as optimist as the next guy, but at this point, you got to be a realist and think that 38 games played by a lot of these guys, played a lot of minutes. You got to wonder at what point did these guys fall off or run out of gas, or a lapse in concentration because of too much fatigue is gonna, give up a goal to the other team. So we really don't know. I think that at this point, the way Rui Vitoria has some of these guys playing, they're right at the limit. They're right at the limit. And I know that the professional athletes and some of these guys are used to playing at some of these limits, but at this, it's not reassuring. Some of the things that we're seeing, um, no valid substitutes, or substitutes where the quality isn't going to be a dramatic drop. I agree with you. I think that Almeida could play all day instead of Smido and give Smido a rest. I don't know about Fesa. And then PT is the biggest case where we don't really have a substitute at the height, or with the influence that PT has. I don't think that Felipe Augusto has been there long enough. I do think that from the little that I've seen of Felipe Augusto, that he is a guy that could play in that role, albeit not as creative as PT, but he can put in the work at midfield and distributing the ball and basically transitioning the ball from the defensive transition to the attack. But right now, it's like you said that there's guys that are too crucial. That with the 1 point lead over Porto is too much of a risk to take out. But then again, how much of a risk are you running by leaving them on the field?
It's it's one of the reasons why Rui Vitória is coaching and we're not. I mean, this is why he's got to make these decisions and he's got to prove his worth and why and back up why he's making these decisions. So
Yeah. So anyway, as I mentioned, Estoril comes up on Tuesday. Let's see if Rui Vitória, being that it's, and thanks Mo for pointing that out, it is the semifinals, not the quarterfinals. The semifinals of the Portuguese Cup. Let's see if Rui Vitória, being that it's a two-legged affair, if he gives some of these guys a break and then leaves the two Benfica to close out the two-legged event at Stade de Luz to go through to the final. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. Twitter questions, unless you got something else that you wanted to add, Steve.
no, I'm good going to the questions.
All right, Mr. Mello. Any reason Rui doesn't start Jimenez with Mitro and instead opts to play Rafa as a second striker the last couple matches? I think that we've probably discussed this a lot here. I just think we feel that both Jimenez and Mitroglou are not compatible with Vitoria's game model. They're okay to play when Benfica is desperate and needs guys up front. But as far as the game model and the game idea that Rui Vitória has in mind, I don't think they're competitive. What do you think, Steve?
I think Jimenez lacks a lot of the guile and you have two guys that are too similar, and for Jimenez to play as a second forward, that second forward is basically bringing the game to Mitroglou, whether it's Jonas in his own way, or basically bringing the whole team forward and connecting with Mitroglou, or Rafa who likes to get the ball and dart at players, and with that mismatch can kind of find Mitroglou either on a cross or a through ball situation. With Jimenez, you have a guy who his skill set's different. He's more looking for physical contact to turn a defender. He's more of a finisher. He's more of a player more similar to Mitroglou's skill set than to Jonas and Rafa, and it just doesn't seem to work as well. Like you say, in desperate situations, you want to get as many finishers in the box. You put the two of them out there. But in a 90-minute situation, it's very difficult to justify playing the two of them together.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, Rui Vitória's game idea is to have that second forward drop a little deeper into the midfield to give options to the guys in the midfield and to give Benfica numbers in the middle. And neither Mitroglou nor Jimenez are guys that are capable of that. So the fact that he had an idea for Jonas to do that, and that's what Jonas usually does, the guys that bring a similar skill set that could drop into the middle, that could control the ball, that can wait for guys and spread the ball around and move quick in and out of combinations, are probably more the guys in the likes of Rafa that we've seen and Servi. Even though I think that Rafa is more a guy that is more of a counter attack specialist. He's a guy that Benfica look for an outlet ball and he takes the ball down the wing and on a quick counter. He's not really a guy that drops into the midfield with his back turned and is going to do a lot. He's more of a guy that likes to run into spaces, that likes to run at defenses. So I don't think that Rafa is that guy, but he's probably better suited than Jimenez is.
Yeah, Rafa doesn't play in those tight situations as well as Jonas does. Get the ball with two guys tight on you. Rafa wants to find a way to turn and run it after past those two guys. Jonas knows that, okay, if I suck these two guys into me and I release the ball at the right moment, I'll bring Salvio into the play. Rafa's got a different mindset.
Yeah, Rafa is more of instinctive. I think he gets the ball and his instinct is already to go forward, because that's the way he's always played the whole his whole career really. Mo's got a slew here of questions. Let's see. Is there concern of Jonas getting injured now that the offense needs him?
He's already injured. What do you mean by is there a
Is there a
concern?
concern of Jonas getting Eski injured? I don't know what that means. Eski injured.
I,
I don't know if it's a typo
seriously?
or not.
Pesky injuries? I don't. Jonas
Pe-
Jonas does not. He's not the most fit or the best athlete on our team. You kind of you don't expect him to play all season long and not get hurt. You don't
yeah.
expect him to be the workhorse. He just doesn't have that physical stamina. He's not the athlete that the other players are
Yeah.
on our team. You, he's going to get hurt often. He's on the wrong side of 30. He's not he's not one of those super built guys like a Gedge is, like a Savio is. It's a different type of player,
Yeah.
different type of body makeup, or however the right terms are.
He's also asking why isn't Luizão or Salvi resting? I think Luizão, from what I've seen, he seems okay. Salvio, he was just injured. He's just sat out a game, if I'm not mistaken. So he hasn't been playing every single game. Mo also says, don't you think Benfica is better equipped to handle this 1 point race versus Football Club Porto with the experience of doing the same last year? Yeah,
What do you
well, I
mean?
mean, we would hope so. That Benfica, because of last year's experience, were better equipped to be in first place with the 1 point lead than Porto is.
Yeah, I think anybody who's in front is better equipped at this rate, no matter how you
Yeah.
look at it. But
Yeah. I mean, the thing, if you want to look at it, and from afar, it does look like Porto has been building up their confidence up until this point.
yep.
I don't know if they take over first place. I don't think they give up that early. I know that there's been some funny calls and some things happen in their games. I know they beat the team that they played like 4 or 5-0, but apparently they needed a penalty to get past that hump. Regardless, it's either neither or there. But right now, if you want to take a look at Benfica from the outside and Porto on the outside, Benfica is a team that uh, there's some struggles. There's definitely some struggles. I think, from what I see, my opinion, there's some tiredness on the squad. As we mentioned earlier, Benfica is not playing with that calmness of mind. They look nervous. They look stiff. We don't know if it has anything to do with the pressure. We don't know if it has something to do with tiredness. And then you got Porto, who seems to have been building up confidence up until this point. So they're hot on a chase, and we have to continue to win these games. Here's one from Paul Sergio, your boy Hodge. Same thing happened last year when Benfica was on a mid-year tear with Pizzi. He's played almost every match in the last 2 years. Yeah, I mean, that's right. And there was that one game, if you guys recall, that Pizzi looked gassed and he had that back pass
Yeah.
uh, against Stubel, if I'm not mistaken, that almost cost us the lead. So we don't know at what point does the tiredness affect the focus, especially late in games. Um, Here's another one from Mo. Hate to mention the refs, but a non-call penalty against Braga for Salvio, and an offside non-goal for Mitru, and an easy red card for Porto. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude. These are things that are happening. I think we at one point, I warned everybody, or I told just be ready for crazy things to happen, for pressure, for articles in the newspaper, destabilizing articles, and this and that. Things are going to happen. We just have to continue to be strong. I mean, had Mitroglou not scored that goal against Braga today, it's a different story. We're talking about the penalty against Salvia, as we mentioned, that wasn't called. We're also talking about the Mitroglou that he scored, that he was offside. So there was a couple things that we could have be looking at this game had we not won. Thankfully, we won, and I don't think that anybody could have taken that goal away from us. Mr. Mello, what will it take for the Liga to look at its refereeing issues, and what steps could be made to fix it? Look, Alex, if I may call you that, Mr. Mello, when you got the guy that refereed Benfica's game this weekend against Braga, which is the same guy that threw out Rui Vitoria in the League Cup match, which is the same guy that served as a lawyer uh, for Porto in the Apito Dourado case. I don't know. Put two and two together, dude. How is the guy that was part of the legal team for Futebol Clube do Porto in the Apito Dourado case is allowed to be a referee in this league? Because obviously there's a lot of things that go on, right? Guys that are coming up in the referee ranks, and I've heard this from people that there's guys that get placed on the top of the list to be referees because obviously there's a certain interest that these guys are there.
Wow.
I know, Steve.
I
I know
mean,
you.
that's normally not the type of stuff that I like to read into
No,
or care about, but
yeah, there's a
that's some pretty
picture.
heavy shit there.
There's a picture of the guy, right? The guy that refereed Benfica's game on the Porto legal team that went to court for the Pit Dourado. That's there. It's documented. Nobody's making this shit up. I mean, you put two and two together. Benfica has asked for a meeting with the refereeing council because Benfica is seeing a lot of things in the background, a lot of movements, a lot of pieces moving in the background to obviously take this championship or to go against Benfica and their championship run. This is real, man. These are things that happen in the background. Portuguese football has been has been uh, like this for a very long time. Perhaps in the past more than now, but there's a lot of things that are going on in the background that we don't see, that a lot of people see, but yet they decide to look the other way. That's happening, and Benfica is seeing these things, and they want to bring these things to the attention of the public. Because if you bring these things to the attention of the public or to the authorities, then all of a sudden the guys that are doing all these moves, they got to stop and say, all right, we got to relax because there people are looking at us. But there's definitely moves happening in the background to prevent Benfica from winning the Tetra. Don't doubt that. Don't doubt that. Here's the next one from your boy Hodge. Do you think we'll see more of the formation we saw in the second half of the Dortmund game in the coming matches? You mean the three-man midfield? If that's what you mean,
Yeah, I think that's what he
Paul.
means.
Yeah, I,
I would have to guess that barring Jonas isn't fit for Dortmund, you're going to see that. I even if he is fit, I have a feeling you're going to see that
against Dortmund.
at Dortmund.
I don't expect it against Chaves, but
No, I don't expect it anywhere in the Portuguese league. Maybe against Porto or Sporting, but I doubt it. But against Dortmund, I'm pretty sure we'll see it.
yeah, against Dortmund, we will definitely see it. I'm almost willing to guarantee it that we will see Felipe Augusto along with Pizzi and Fesa in that midfield, because that's just the way that we need to play. We need to have options. We need to have guys closing down spaces for Dortmund not to penetrate. You know, that's it's simple as that. I think that anybody could see that we're going to need to go with the three-man formation, and it's definitely not going to be Almeida.
You, Mr. John Hancock just clarified something. That lawyer was Luis Freire, who refed the Benfica Boavista game and the Ladrão Tondela game on Friday. It's not the one that actually refed our match.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, so I know. So yeah, there's implications there, obviously, and I'm sorry for screwing that up, but uh, that's the way it is. He's also saying, have you guys ever seen a league in North America or United or the
Europe.
Europe try to sabotage a team so badly because the season would have been over in December/January? I don't know, dude. I don't follow other leagues that closely, but I'm very familiar what goes on in the Portuguese league and the forces. I mean, you mean to tell me that so the Super Dragões go to the training center where the referees are trained or work out every day, and they make their presence felt, and they go and threaten the referees, and you don't think that has anything to do with the pressure that was put on the referees for the following weeks. I mean, look at what has happened since then. Porto is getting away with murder. There's things that we see with Benfica that are happening. It's very obvious, man. Only a fool or a blind guy wouldn't see what's going on, and it's. I don't blame with this. I blame the authority figures. I blame um, the police, Ministério Público, for not getting involved in these things because this is highly suspicious. These things that go on is highly suspicious. So, I mean, if you don't want to get involved, hey, don't get involved. So that's what happens. But um, Crown Leon, what do you guys think of the kid Gelson Fernandes for the box to box position?
Is that the young kid from the B team?
Yeah.
Is that his name, Gelson Fernandes? I've seen very little of him.
Yeah.
I don't think the answer for the number 8 position in the near future is in the B team at this moment, not the
Yeah.
8 position. I think I'm having a hard time saying that we have a problem at the 8 position. I think we have a problem for depth at the 8 position, but Pizzi's shown. I know I have a soft spot in it, and it's not. It's very well known that I like Pizzi, but Pizzi's shown multiple occasions, both under Zuj and now under Rui Vitoria, that he's a viable option for that position. That he is one of the better players at that position in the league. And could we play with a more robust player, a more, like you guys like to say, box to box player, a guy who has more physical attributes than Pizzi? Yeah, sure we could. We did it with Renato last year. But to say that Pizzi playing an 8 means it's a problem. It's that the position is a problem. I think is unfair to the guy. If we win this year, that's the second league title we win with Pizzi as the number 8.
Yeah, I understood. I mean, from what I understand, we've been talking up Pedro Pereira, or I'm sorry, I always mess that
Pedro
up.
Rodrigues. Yeah, it's the PP address. Yeah, it's
so Pedro Rodrigues, I mean, he's a guy that could play that position. I also know that for a fact that Ildil, and I apologize if I'm butchering his name, Idilberto, who is a kid that is now at Nottingham Forest, if I'm not mistaken. That he's played for Benfica in the 8 position, and maybe Bruno can let us know on Twitter. But from what I understand, he used to play in the box to box. He was relegated to a right back position. That right now, that's where he is. He's at Nottingham Forest, playing for the U20 team. And apparently the kid is having some kind of identity crisis because he doesn't really know what position he should be playing in, because he has the habits of an 8, but they're pulling him back. I don't know what's going on there, but I just read something on a blog about him being more of a box-to-box guy than a guy that plays right back. But I don't know, because I don't follow Benfica's youth that closely. So I couldn't tell you, but there's guys that were writing about him, and he hasn't been doing all that bad in England, from what I understand. But he's another kid that's that I hope we don't really lose. So we'll see. I mean, there's talent, man. And speaking of talent, obviously, shout out to Benfica's youth junior team that got past PSV tonight after PKs. They now move to the quarterfinals of the youth Champions League. They will either play CSKA or Rosenborg, I believe. So congratulations to them. It's always good to see the youth teams in the upper echelon of Europe. So congratulations. Anything else, Steve? Before we say goodbye, blow this popsicle stand.
Let's blow the popsicle stand.
All right. Thanks everybody for checking us out. Don't forget to check our friends over at planetbenfica.co.uk, benficapodcast.com, at Steve Santos 6, at 10CO10 is where you can find Steve and Cristiano at Benfica Podcast. At Talking to the Doll is where you can find my personal one, benficapodcast.com, iTunes, Facebook, all that good stuff. Thank you very much for checking us out. Next week, we'll be back. I don't know if I'm still deciding whether we're going to do Tuesday after the Estoril game or if we'll do Wednesday, though. So that's something that we need to look at, and I'll decide until then. Thank you very much, and everybody have a good rest of the week, and Forza Benfica. See ya.
Ciao.